We can take those up.
What do we call it when it starts?
Do we have enough for the subcommittee?
We've got a quorum.
We do? Oh, yeah, there is. There's two.
Right. Natural Resources Committee will begin. Thank you, members. Due to the Senate being in caucus, we have a couple of bills that are going to be presented by Senate staff. Is this the order we should go in? We should do this one first. Okay. We'll begin with Senator Oropeza's bill, SB 104. We have a quorum, so let's do the roll.
Skinner,
Here.
Gilmore, Brownlee, Chesbro, De Leon, Hill, Huffman, Knight, Logue.
All right, so you may begin.
Thank you. Madam Chair and members of the committee, thank you for your willingness to allow me to present SB 104 on behalf of my boss, Senator Jenny Oropeza. SB 104 will add nitrogen trifluoride gas, or NF3, to the list of greenhouse gases that the Air Resources Board must regulate. Last year, scientists found that NF3, which is widely used in the manufacture of solar panels, LCD television screens, and microchips, is 17,000 times more potent as a global warming agent than is a similar amount of carbon dioxide. It was also discovered that there's much more NF3 in the atmosphere than had been previously thought. As the damaging effects of the gas became known only recently, NF3 was not included in the list of gases contained in AB 32. The list in AB 32 was taken from the Kyoto Protocol, which was negotiated through the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Consequently, this bill, SB 104, also requires that the state's list of gases be updated if this UN body updates its list. On behalf of Senator Jenny Oropeza, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Witnesses in support.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Dan Kolb with the Union of Concerned Scientists. We're very pleased to support this bill, and we thank Senator Oropeza for authoring this bill. Very simply, and I think the Senator Oropeza's staff person summarized this very well. Very simply, AB 32 was created to make sure that California is highly involved in the effort to reduce greenhouse gases and combat global warming. At the same time, there's an effort nationally and internationally to do the same thing, and that of course we all support. It is imperative that we identify and appropriately regulate all the greenhouse gases that are determined to contribute to global warming, which is really the definition of a greenhouse gas. And this bill ensures that we won't need legislation every time the United Nations framework comes up with a determination that a existing gas is indeed a greenhouse gas. So it really creates a sense of what's the best word? It keeps things going in a smooth fashion to make sure that the state has the authority to regulate gases as those gases are identified. So we strongly urge your aye vote on this bill. Thank you.
Joshua Champion here for Sierra Club, California, and we support this bill.
Plus one resolution.
Requested that. That's fine. Apologies, just a request came in. Do we have any other witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition? Questions by...
Move the bill, Madam Chair.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to move the bill. Would you like to close?
Just to reiterate that I respectfully ask for your aye vote on behalf of Senator Oropeza.
So with no questions, we'll move to a vote on the bill.
Is there any opposition?
I asked.
Motion is due pass to appropriations. Skinner?
Aye.
Skinner, aye. Gilmore? No. Gilmore, no. Brownlee? Aye. Brownlee, aye. Chesbro?
Aye.
Chesbro, aye. De Leon? Hill. Hill, aye. Huffman. Knight. Knight, no. Logue. Logue, no.
The bill will be on call.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll now move to, we'll go to that one next.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll now move to Senator Smidian's bill, SB 832.
I guess they're on the floor.
You may open.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members. My name is Carol Mortensen with the Senate Environmental Quality Committee, and I want to thank you for allowing me to present on behalf of Senator Smidian and all the members of the Senate Environmental Quality Committee. This is the committee's annual omnibus cleanup measure, and the main focus of this year's bill is to update and clarify the kind of the overriding statute for the California Pollution Financing Control Authority.
I'll move the bill,
and
Madam Chair.
That little statute hasn't been really looked at since the 70s, and one of the things that has been problematic is the 375-word-long definition that's a single sentence of what's a project. So we're trying to get that cleaned up and make it a little easier for folks to use. So I respectfully ask for your aye vote. I have folks from CPCFA here if you have any questions.
We have a motion and a second, but we'll allow our witnesses in support to speak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Diane Stanton from the State Treasurer's Office, here to answer technical questions. Along with me is Sherry Wall, Deputy Director for CPCFA, the Pollution Control Authority housed in the Treasurer's Office.
Do we have any witnesses in opposition? Any questions by committee members? And yes, he did. Great. Yeah, it's good. You may close.
I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
We will call the roll.
Skinner.
Aye.
Skinner, aye. Gilmore. Gilmore, aye. Brownlee. Brownlee, aye. Chesbro. Chesbro, aye. De Leon. Hill. Hill, aye. Huffman. Knight. Knight, aye. Logue. Logue, aye.
Great. Let's move on the consent calendar then. It's items 11 and 12, SB 605, Senator Ashburn, and SB 671, Senator Runner. Do we have a motion on the consent calendar? So moved. Great. And a second? Thank you. Then we will call the roll.
Skinner.
Aye.
Skinner, aye. Gilmore. Gilmore, aye. Brownlee. Brownlee, aye. Chesbro. Chesbro, aye. De Leon. Hill. Hill, aye. Hoffman. Knight. Knight, aye. Logue. Logue, aye.
Consent calendar is out. Now, do we have no other senators? Do we have to wait?
We don't have any other senators.
Yeah, okay.
left are Democratic senators. So
They're
my
in
suggestion
caucus.
would be to give them a 15-minute call,
Okay.
and then if nobody shows up in 15 minutes, then we'll just adjourn and move the bills to Wednesday. Otherwise, you'll sit around here indefinitely.
Okay. All right. So you told Sergeant, can we 15
Yeah,
minutes?
I could,
All
yeah,
right.
go ahead and you
So
can
do
go
I
ahead and
announce
announce
that?
that.
And we'll just wait 15 minutes.
Yeah, we'll wait.
Okay.
We'll wait 15 minutes for.
We have just given our colleagues a 15-minute call so they can come to committee and we can hear their bills. And if the business that they're engaged in is not able to conclude in 15 minutes, then we may adjourn and hear their bills on Wednesday, given that we have a special hearing on Wednesday. But let's give them the 15 minutes and see if we have some senators. Members, we will resume our committee session. So if we could have our committee members back up to the dais, and if we could please have our observers quiet, and we will now proceed to Senator Kehoe's bill. Let's see, what's the first one?
Could we take up 412
Item
first,
6,
Madam
SB
Chair?
412, yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your patience. I know it's a busy day. Hi. First, before I present SB 412, I'd like to take as authors amendments the suggested amendments listed in the analysis. Let's see. On page 3, end of the first paragraph, let's see. I'm happy to accept amendments that preserve the current standards and also recognizes CARB's authority to increase those standards. Page 3 of the analysis, amendment that gives guidance to the PUC in selecting technologies in consultation with CARB that reduce greenhouse gas emissions and other pollutants. And then finally on page 4, the end of the first paragraph, the recommendation to delete from page 4 of the bill lines 11 through 13, the reference to greenhouse gas emissions performance standards.
Great.
Is that?
Appreciate it.
Oh, on page 4, point 4 refers to last week's amendments in Assembly Utilities. And they would be adopted here in Natural Resources.
Okay. Yes, we have all of them right here.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your help, Madam Chair, with this measure and others. I know we had to walk through it a little bit. Ah, excellent. It's a tidal wave. This modifies the self-generation program by ensuring that for the duration of the program, the California Public Utilities Commission, in consultation with the California Air Resources Board, will determine which non-solar, ultra-clean distributed generation technologies achieve reductions in greenhouse gas emissions and other pollutants in order to receive SCHIP incentives. Also, that the Public Utilities Commission will ensure that the benefits of these DG resources are made available to all ratepayers. And I'm sure you'd love me to go on at length, but I have excellent witnesses here to answer questions. And I can leave it at that if you like.
All right, we'll hear from our witnesses in support.
Thank you, Madam Chair. David Gonzalez today on behalf of EMA, the Engine Manufacturers Association. EMA is the trade association that represents some of the companies that manufacture and distribute these very clean, very efficient energy technologies in the state. We're happy to be here in support of Senate Bill 412. Your committee in particular is at the forefront of a lot of the debate that we see between what's often referred to as the 3 E's, energy, the economy, and the environment. And you're often put in a position of having to weigh one policy against another or sacrifice one for the other. This is a great bill because it actually provides concurrent benefits at the same time. So it provides benefits to all 3 policy areas. In terms of the environment, this bill will ensure that only the most cleanest, efficient combined heat and power technologies receive the incentive. These are the most stringent emission standards and efficiency standards in the entire world. So only the most cutting-edge stuff will provide the incentive. In terms of greenhouse gas emissions, the 3 sister agencies in charge of implementing AB 32 are all in support of the concept of providing more combined heat and power energy systems in the state. This committee in particular asked the Energy Commission to provide a study to this body as to whether combined heat and power should be a part of the SCHIP system. They came back with a report saying in the affirmative that we should be included. The Energy Commission issued that study in 2008. In terms of CARB, in the AB 32 scoping plan, they identified 4,000 additional megawattage of energy from combined heat and power because it's so efficient, it actually helps reduce California's carbon footprint. And then lastly, the PUC is here in support of the bill as well, and they'll be providing some testimony to that effect. In terms of energy, combined heat and power is a great energy resource. It will help diversify California's portfolio. It provides more electrons without a need for additional distribution networks. And it's, again, an extremely efficient way of producing energy. And then lastly, in terms of the economy, as you know, the downturn, the economic condition has had a big impact on the manufacturing sector. This will help incentivize some additional manufacturing jobs in the state. And for those reasons and others, we hope you can support it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members. I'm Jean Clinton. I'm the Climate Strategies Manager from the California Public Utilities Commission. I'm here to let you know that the Commission has fully endorsed this legislation.
We look forward to collaborating with the Air Resources Board and the Energy Commission on the selection of appropriate technologies and strategies to both meet our carbon objectives in California as well as meeting our peak demand management challenges. So we support this legislation.
Thank you.
Chair Skinner and members of the committee, my name is Eric Wong. I'm with Cummins, and I also represent a coalition of manufacturers and developers that install these technologies at hospitals, senior citizens' homes, and campuses across the state that they would like to see their fellow campuses and similarly situated facilities install these technologies. We are in strong support of this bill collectively, speaking for the group I represent, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members, Trent Smith on behalf of Qualcomm and support.
Great. Any other witnesses in support? You could probably use that mic right there. But.
Madam Chair, members, thank you very much. My name is Rick Reese. I'm here representing Capstone Turbine Corporation, located in the San Fernando Valley, where we employ over 250 people. We'd like to employ more, and we think this bill will help us do that, as well as protect the environment. Thank you very much. We urge your aye vote.
Thank you.
I'm Keith Davidson with DE Solutions. I'm here on behalf of Solar Turbines. Solar Turbines is a major manufacturer and supplier of gas turbines to the combined heat and power market, and they are headquartered in San Diego. And many of their customers have benefited from the incentive program in the past, and there's many more that look forward to participating in the future with the aye vote today. So we wholeheartedly support this bill. Thank you.
Any remaining witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition? Any questions from committee members? I just wanted to say that I really appreciate, Senator, your willingness to work with myself and staff. I'm a strong supporter of combined heat and power, and it's, interestingly enough, it's one of the technologies that is in wide use in Denmark, and is one of the reasons why Denmark has one of the lower emissions profiles, considering its both GDP and its overall, not just footprint, but it is one of the reasons that Denmark has a very low carbon emissions profile. What we were together trying to achieve in the modifications to the bill was to ensure that the technologies that were eligible under the SGIP program really were the state-of-the-art, the best available technologies, because like any fossil fuel combustion, of which not all combined heat and power is, but some is, there are differences in technologies, and some combined heat and power may not be either as emissions friendly or as efficient as others. So what we wanted to do through this is make sure that SGIP, given that it's an incentive program and is actually providing financial incentives, was really providing those financial incentives to the technologies that were the best available. So I think that we have done that with the amendments, and I'm very happy that you brought it forward. I'm very pleased with how the bill is moved, and I think we already had a motion and a second. Do pass with amendments. So unless there's any other comments or question, we'll take the roll. Excuse me, would you like to close?
Just to say thank you for your help. You were very, very supportive of getting the bill in the right shape. And as you know, the standards in the bill for efficiency and emissions are the highest in the world for this kind of technology. And we've allowed CARB and PUC to continue to ratchet up. So I think it's in excellent shape. Thanks to your help. I appreciate it. Ask for your aye vote.
So we will take the roll.
Skinner?
Aye.
Skinner, aye. Gilmore?
Aye.
Gilmore, aye. Brownlee? Brownlee, aye. Chesbro? Chesbro, aye. De Leon? De Leon, aye. Hill? Hill, aye. Huffman? Huffman, aye. Knight? Knight, aye. Logue? Logue, aye.
Bill's out. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Members, Senator Padilla's office just pulled SB 25, so we won't be hearing it today. And now we will move to your second.
Thank you very much. SB 505, having to do with safety elements, fire hazards, and local land use decisions, members. I would like to accept the committee's technical amendments suggested on page 4 of the analysis. as authors amendments, and I want to thank your staff for proposing these changes. With regard to the issue raised at the top of page 4, we will work through the bill with your help to substitute hazard for unreasonable risk. Replace the term unreasonable risk with hazard throughout the bill. And we'd like to also add Assembly Members Davis and De La Torre as co-authors. I think that's it for technical amendments, right? Or for amendments.
Mr. Vice Chair, I'd like to move the bill.
Thank you.
Those in support?
This is not throughout the bill. Okay. All right. Okay, not throughout the bill, but only to limit the scope of this change to the fire portion of the safety element. Forgive me for misstating it. Is that acceptable to the maker of the motion? Thank you. And I appreciate the motion. This is the second policy committee hearing in this House, and the bill has come out of all of our experiences of wildfires over the last few years. In San Diego, going back to 2003, the connection between land use planning and fire protection has taken on increased significance, members. It's happened time and time again. We had another massive fire in San Diego in 2007, as did much of Orange County and other places in Southern California. Last year, we saw tremendous hundreds and hundreds of fires burning in Northern California. Currently, the state of California is spending about $1 billion a year for fire suppression alone, often on an emergency basis. And we believe, according to expert analysis, that this is only going to increase. Our fire scientists and climate scientists say that due to drought, climate change, and continued development in state responsibility areas and high fire hazard severity zones, we will have more larger and more intense wildfires in the western U.S. Almost all of California is either a fire hazard severity zone or a state responsibility area. Given these enormous costs that the state is incurring, it's in our best interest, and it's a matter of critical public safety to ensure that local governments engage in fire protection at the front end of development and as early in the planning process as possible. Specifically, the bill requires the Governor's Office of Planning and Research to update its fire hazard planning document on or before January 1, 2011. Requires local governments to review and revise the safety elements of their general plans by 2015 and periodically thereafter, including relevant information such as mapping, data, goals, and policies about local fire hazards in their state responsibility areas and high fire hazard severity zones. This parallels the language we've included in safety elements regarding floods in recent years. It also requires OPR in consultation with CAL FIRE to update the model initial study checklist of the CEQA guidelines to include questions regarding fire hazards. 505 will provide early, consistent, and meaningful high fire hazard planning statewide. The American Planning Association points out in their recent support letter the measure just makes sense. It includes measures that cities and counties should currently be doing to address fire hazards in the SRA. It has very strong support. We've been working on this bill for over a year with a lot of stakeholders, some of whom are at the table today, including California Fire Chiefs Association, California Professional Firefighters, Fire Districts Association of California, American Planning Association, Sierra Club, and others. And in fact, the League of Cities has a support letter pending after quite a bit of discussion. It passed Assembly Local Government last week, 5-0. I'd ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
And I have witnesses.
Witnesses in support, please.
Madam Chair, members, Christy Bauma representing the California Professional Firefighters. I'm having committee room deja vu looking at some of the same members in last week's policy committee. So I'll just suggest to you similar testimony from last week, which is you can spend $1 on the front end in mitigation, prevention, and making communities as safe as they possibly can be, or you can spend 3 or 4 or 10 on the back end battling blazes that just mow through your communities that quickly get out of control due to the lack of that mitigation. Fires will start, fires will cause property damage and threat to life safety, but any opportunity to minimize that impact is a good policy goal. So we support this bill.
Thank you. My name is Afrak Vargas. I'm with the California State Firefighters Association, and we're proud to support this bill. What's so funny?
Where do I get one of those buttons?
The old antique shop that I found it at.
But thanks for your help, Afrak.
This bill provides consistency throughout the state of California. Some communities are very responsible about their planning. Some are not. The mutual aid system that we have in California is the best in the world, but it is being taxed and it is being overused by some communities. And this bill will help to provide some consistency. And so we respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Great.
Madam Chair, members, Ralph Hine from the California Fire Chiefs Association, Fire Districts Association. Senator Kehoe referred to a front-end process. All of the Blue Ribbon Commission reports since the firestorms of some years ago have recommended basically a front-end process to look at state responsibility areas and high fire severity zones. That's our number one priority. This bill is a rational, we think, reasonable planning process for that, and we are very much in support. Thank you.
Bill Higgins from the League. Bill Higgins from the League of California Cities. We have a preliminary support because we're halfway through our policy committee process. Our board will meet in 2 weeks, and it will take it up. We come to this issue a little bit differently because we agree that front end, a dollar saved on the front end will save $3 on the back end. Unfortunately, our fiscal system and its compartmentalization doesn't allow those funds to flow freely from one to the other. We've worked very hard with the senator to minimize that impacts. We do have a lot of communities that are frustrated with mutual aid because only direct costs are covered, not the indirect costs, such as the overtime you pay for the people back who cover shifts back home are paid. So we think that upfront planning will save money in the long term, which is why we're taking this position and ask for your aye vote today.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition?
It's fine. Members of the committee, Kathy Mannion with the Regional Council of Rural Counties here in opposition. We have worked very closely with the author and her staff last session and this session. I'm pleased to say that we were able to resolve many of our policy, or I'd say all of our policy issues, except the issue of unfunded mandate. It is not realistic to expect that we would be able to recover our costs by fees and assessments for the updating of the safety element of the general plan. So that remains a major issue for us, costs. So we must oppose the bill. Thank you.
Kara Martinson on behalf of the California State Association of Counties would just like to echo the comments of my colleague from RCRC. We really appreciate the willingness of the author and our staff to work with us. However, we must remain opposed based on the cost implications. Thank you.
Any other witnesses in opposition? Committee members, questions? Go ahead, Assemblymember Logue.
What kind of costs are affected? My biggest concern is actually more unfunded mandates on the county and city local government with the way the economy is in the state of California. Do we have a cost, especially concerning the general plan, that it will be passed on to the cities and counties? And do you have any ideas on what those costs may be?
It would vary from county to county, Assembly member, depending on how much they spend on their planning efforts and when they are prepared to do the reviews. Okay. But we have, as was noted by the testimony, we got the League of Cities from opposition to pending support as soon as they're able to have their meeting. We also time the review and amendments to the safety element in the general plans to when it would be happening on the natural with the local counties. And a number of counties have already included fire information. So we've bent over backwards. How much it'll cost, I don't have those exact numbers. Maybe Bill does, he seems.
I don't have exact numbers, but I have a relationship that might answer your question for you. What this bill largely involves is requiring local agencies to take a look at all available information, developing a plan to address that and to mitigate wildfire impact. We think, and it applies to new development, we think that that's pretty parallel to what CEQA already requires. And so, but what this does by putting it in the general plan requires a consistency with all our plan that kind of makes some sense in terms of citing public facilities and things like that.
Any other questions? Would you like to close?
I would ask for your aye vote. And over time, in fact, not even that much time, this bill will save money, the state and the locals.
Thank you, Senator. We have a motion to do pass as amended. We will take the roll.
Skinner?
Aye.
Skinner, aye. Gilmore? Gilmore not voting. Brownlee? Brownlee, aye. Chesbro? Chesbro, aye. De Leon? De Leon, aye. Hill? Hill, aye. Huffman? Huffman, aye. Knight? Not voting. Mr. Knight? Logue? No. Logue, no. Bill's out.
Bill is out. Thank
you very much.
We'll now move to SB 55. Senator Corbett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that this will be quick, I hope. Under current law, the Department of Conservation twice annually calculates both the recycling rate and a redemption rate for beverage containers sold and returned for recycling in California. Senate Bill 55 will delete the requirement for calculating the redemption rate for the Beverage Container Recycling Fund. The redemption rate calculation is far more complicated and an outdated formula, and there is no longer any legal or practical reason for the department to calculate this redemption rate. This calculation only causes confusion among the public, recyclers, and cities as to what the correct return rate is. The bill has no opposition, and with me today is Californians Against Waste to support the measure. Ask for your aye vote.
Madam Chair, members, Mark Murray with Californians Against Waste. This bill will save administrative costs at the Department of Conservation. Urge your aye vote.
We have a motion by Assemblymember Gilmore, a second by Assemblymember Brownlee. Other witnesses in support?
Madam Chair, members, Josh Panay on behalf of the California Refuse Recycling Council. 100 businesses throughout the state that focus on recycling would ask for your ayes.
Thank you. My name is Catherine Brandenburg with the Flanagan Law Firm representing the Institute of Scrap Recycling Industries. We also support this bill. Thank you.
Any other witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition? Before we, questions? All right, before we take the roll call, I would expect that if the bill is substantially amended, that we would return to committee.
Absolutely, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. We will call the roll.
Skinner?
Aye.
Skinner, aye. Gilmore? Gilmore, aye. Brownlee? Brownlee, aye. Chesbro? Chesbro, aye. De Leon? Hill? Hill, aye. Huffman? Huffman, aye. Knight? Knight, aye. Logue? Logue, aye.
The bill is out. Thank you.
Thank
We
you,
will now
members.
go to
Thank you, Madam
Senator
Chair.
Leno's bill, SB 581.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. A pleasure to be before you for the first time, and I will try to be as quick as Senator Corbett. A few years ago, I authored a bill in the Assembly which dealt with a unique relationship that San Francisco and its PUC has with PG&E relative to complicated issues going back to the Raker Act of 1913. I'll spare you all the details. But what that bill did was allowed for San Francisco PUC to generate remote solar power and allow that unused power, because there's no demand at that remote site, to go to the grid. And at the time that San Francisco has a new municipal load, at some point we build a new school or a new jailhouse, we need that load, that PG&E then returns the power for that use. Now, ratepayers are protected because the San Francisco PUC will pay for all transmission distribution costs. In fact, we believe that PG&E actually gets a little benefit because we will upgrade their system to do so in the process. So ratepayers are protected, if not enhanced, along the way. What this bill does is expands that opportunity for solar generation to all forms of renewable so that we can continue to increase our renewable portfolio standard. And thank you to PG&E for working with us. There was a 20-mile provision limit that got controversial. We were able to resolve that with PG&E, so there is no opposition to the bill.
Great. The bill's now been moved by Assemblymember Hill with the second by Assemblymember Logue. Witnesses in support.
Madam Chair and members, Don Gilbert representing SFPUC. We're the sponsor of the bill. I think the Senator explained it very well. Be happy to answer any questions if need be.
Great. Do we have any witnesses in opposition? So none. Any questions from the committee members? All right, Senator Leno, you may close.
Thank you very much. I ask for your aye vote.
Excellent. We'll have the roll.
Skinner.
Aye.
Skinner, aye. Gilmore. Gilmore, aye. Brownlee. Brownlee, aye. Chesbro. Chesbro, aye. De Leon. Hill. Hill, aye. Huffman. Huffman, aye. Knight. Knight, aye. Logue. Logue, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bill's out. Thank you, Senator Leno. So where do we have Wolk? Is Wolk here? He's not here. Who else? Anybody here? Where's my lunch? Yeah. And Wolk. Was here.
Ms. Wolk?
Correct.
Is she here?
She left. Calling everybody. All right. We're calling our senators. Move right along. That's right. So we get to UNC. I know. I'm very happy. It might be a miracle.
About 10 minutes into that 15 minutes, 4 senators show up.
Yeah. No kidding. That was good, too. I left my lunch downstairs, though.
Oh.
I thought it was down or up.
Now they're up. Is that good or bad? I can't always. I think that's off.
Down. I was
No.
right.
Now they're on? Are they
No,
on or
they're
off
not.
now?
They're dead now, right? They're down.
Dead.
That's what I thought.
Okay, now they're dead. Now we can talk about lunch.
I always forget. I'm like,
No senators yet.
So we need to finish by 2:45, so you have time to eat.
Yeah, I'll eat in the committee. I don't care.
Yeah.
I know I should have Marina bring it up here.
No, well, no, it's been Idiot's chairing each year now. They've got a really long agenda,
Yeah.
so he may come late.
Yeah. We're really good using our. Oh, I know. I can text it. I don't have to.
I think that would fall under prerogatives of the chair.
So LA Times, man, their thing on the net metering is pretty bad.
Thank you.
All right, we will begin with SB, he wanted to do SB 262 first.
SB
right?
262?
Did you want to do SB 546 first?
Either one.
Okay, we'll start with SB 6, whichever one you prefer. You can start at your, we'll let you begin with the bill of your preference.
Let's start lower numbers first.
Okay, great, excellent. So we will then begin with SB 262. You may open.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. First, I'd like to accept the committee's recommended amendment in comment 2 that clarifies that a meeting cancellation notice must be made 10 days prior to the hearing date. After consulting with Coastal Commission staff and committee staff, we believe a 10-day notice of cancellation is sufficient and consistent with current Coastal Commission practices. Additionally, we'll be accepting an amendment under comment 3 of the analysis that specifies that the extension of deadlines will only be granted when the Commission has formally canceled a meeting. SB 262, as proposed to be amended, simply allows some modest flexibility in scheduling Coastal Commission meetings. Currently, the Coastal Act requires that the Commission meet at least monthly. The bill would modify that requirement so the Commission must meet at least 10 times a year. Commission meetings can cost upwards of $50,000 and can put enormous pressures on an agency that's been subjected to substantial budget cuts. In a spirit of trying to provide savings and do it in a responsible way, we feel this is a fiscally prudent measure in these challenging budget and economic times. And I have Sarah Christie right here in support, and there's no opposition now to this measure, and I ask an aye vote.
Thank you, Chair and members. Given that there's no more opposition to this bill, I'll just keep it very brief to clarify a few issues that have come up during conversations about this bill. It is not the Commission's intention or desire to hold less than 12 meetings per year. As long as we can continue to maintain that level of public meetings, we fully intend to do so. But in the event that the budget continues to deteriorate, the Commission is so close to the margin now that we do need the flexibility to be able to save costs wherever we can.
Great. We have a motion by Assemblymember Hill with a second by Assemblymember Brownlee. We'll continue with our witnesses in support.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Andy Culbertson. I'm a professional urban planner and land use attorney, and I've practiced over 25 years before the California Coastal Commission. I wanted to come today and briefly tell you about my perspective on this bill. The Coast Commission is the final step for many of my governmental agency and private clients in a very long and expensive entitlement process. I think any time you want to work with a public agency, you want to collaborate and reach a staff recommendation for approval with conditions your client can accept. That's done by collaborating with staff and communicating with them. That's not possible now. The staff is so stressed, I can tell you firsthand in working with them, that they cannot even take the time to meet and reach those kinds of consensus positions. Therefore, I urge your committee, I'll be very brief as Ms. Christie was, I'll urge you to support this bill as good government and as opening an opportunity for the Commission staff to have more time to meet with the regulated community and reach consensus rather than multiple hearings. Thank you very much.
Are there any other witnesses in support? Do we have any witnesses in opposition? With none, committee members, do you have questions? Senator Lowenthal, would you like to close?
Urge your aye vote.
Thank you. We will call the roll.
Skinner?
Aye.
Skinner, aye. Gilmore? Gilmore not voting. Brownlee? Brownlee, aye. Chesbro? Chesbro, aye. De Leon? Hill? Hill, aye. Hoffman? Knight? Not voting. Lowe? Not voting.
Bill's on call, and that motion was due pass as amended, and you did accept the amendment. So now we'll continue on to your
And how many votes do I need?
546.
One more vote?
Correct.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Madam Chair and members. SB 546 does several things relating to the collection and reuse of used oil. The goal is to encourage the best and safest reuse of used oil in California and to reduce toxic air pollution resulting from some of the uses of used oil. I'd like to address the suggested amendments in the committee analysis starting on page 5. I'd like to accept this amendment in concept and work with your committee staff to draft the language that clarifies that the MOU between the out-of-state facility and the DTSC ensure that the facility would provide DTSC adequate funding to enforce the MOU, that the out-of-state facility tests the California transfer facility standards, and that this testing is a requirement for the out-of-state facility, without which the individual trucks will have to test before they leave, as the committee analysis specifies, before they leave the state, as the committee analysis specifies. SB 546 increases the incentives paid for recycling used oil. It reduces the number of used oil collectors that can apply for incentives and increases the testing and inspection requirements for used oil transported. As you know, the used oil fee and incentives have not been adjusted since the inception of this action almost 2 decades ago, and that was in 1991. California generates approximately 150 million gallons of used oil a year, and of this amount, approximately 59% is recycled, but only 10% is re-refined. The remaining oil is potentially burned for fuel, much of which is shipped out of state, untreated, and untested. Currently, California requires all of the used oil transporters that transport oil within California or transport oil to a transfer facility which will then be exported out of California to have that oil tested for harmful chemicals such as PCBs. As proposed to be amended, SB 546 closes this loophole by requiring the remaining oil that is shipped out of state to be tested directly or through an enforceable MOU the out-of-state facility has with the Department of Toxic Substance Control. Bottom line is that this bill seeks to level the playing field for California businesses and to ensure that used oil is properly handled in recycling, and I have witnesses here in support.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the committee, Peter Weiner on behalf of Domino Cardoon, the largest used oil recycler in the state. We support the bill and are one of the co-sponsors along with Evergreen Oil. Bob Solnick, my compatriot, will deal with the re-refining aspects of this. I'm going to deal briefly with the testing aspects, which were, I should say, the controversial. I think with the amendment that significant parts of the opposition have withdrawn their, or will withdraw their opposition, and we're pleased to do that. Only 7 years ago, only 10% of California oil, about 6 or 7 million gallons, was taken out of state. Today that number is 30 million gallons, or 25%. The oil doesn't principally come from rural areas. It comes from places like Sacramento and Fresno and Bakersfield. As you can imagine, 25% of the oil in the state doesn't come from remote rural areas. It comes from the place where the people are. And in Sacramento, just as an example, where you have transfer stations such as Ramos Oil, which supports this bill, is on file in West Sacramento, they've had to lay people off. Why? Because they have to comply with these testing requirements, and single trucks are saying, no, we're just taking it straight out of state. We don't want to risk the result of having high PCB testing. And so places like Ramos Oil that don't have their own lab, that have to go out to a lab outside but is located nearby in Sacramento or West Sacramento, there's 722 of them in the state, are suffering because these single trucks with a lot of VMT, a lot of GHG, all acronyms known to you guys, are going out of state. This bill, with the amendment and with the testing requirement, will assure that we're not exporting PCBs to be burned. There are opponents of the bill who say that testing is expensive. All I can tell you is that people in California are doing it every day. They don't have their own labs, and it doesn't take 24 hours. It takes 3 hours. It all depends on what you want to do. So we think this bill is practical. We think it's good for re-refining used oil and increasing recycling standards. We're certainly proud to support the bill.
Thank you. Other witnesses in support.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Robert Solnick. I represent Evergreen Oil. Evergreen is a California corporation which employs 212 people. It is one of only 2 United States re-refiners that do closed-loop re-refining. The bill is supported by the Sierra Club, the City of San Francisco. The City of Santa Monica has indicated that staff has recommended support, expected to be ratified by the City Council on July the 14th. Waste Management supports this bill, as does Coast Oil. The bill promotes re-refining in the following ways. It gives direct incentives to re-refiners. It gives relief for oil manufacturers from the California Oil Fund if their base lube contains at least 70% re-refined oil. It creates a definition of re-refined oil that is supported by the American Petroleum Institute and the Western States Petroleum Association. And most importantly, it ensures that California re-refiners can compete for the used oil necessary to expand re-refining and green jobs in California. Between 30 and 35 million gallons of California used oil leave the state annually because out-of-state facilities that do not have to bear the cost of testing that oil to California standards, which are far higher than national standards, can afford to pay more for the oil. This phenomenon has been recorded by the Lawrence Livermore Report, commissioned by the Integrated Waste Management Board on pages 30 and 31, and by memos published by the DTSC in 2007. It is our position that 546 corrects this situation by requiring that the oil going directly out of state be tested to California standards, thereby creating a level playing field so that California companies can expand re-refining in California. Also, it is very important to us that this bill will stop the exporting of pollution to neighboring states containing heavy metals, PCBs, and halogens. We hope you support the bill. Thank you.
Joshua Champion with Sierra Club California, and as already stated, we support this bill.
Other witnesses in support?
Denise Duncan, representing the California Independent Oil Marketers Association, in support.
Any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Phil Vermeulen, representing the Independent Waste Oil Collectors Transporters Association. We are happy to withdraw our letter of opposition if the amendment that is proposed is taken. This hysteria over PCBs, I'm not going to go on and carry it on, but this hysteria has gotten out of control, suffice that to say. And we'd be very happy with that amendment to remove our opposition. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Adam Love. I'm actually the lead author on the Lawrence Livermore report that was commissioned by the California Integrated Waste Management Board and completed last year. The board commissioned the report because there was lots of sort of contradictory information with regard to the used oil system in California, and they were looking for a third party with no financial interest in the outcome to evaluate how best California can increase the amount of re-refined oil coming from the used oil in California. We spent about 2 years meeting with stakeholders, looking at all the data we could get our hands on, and trying to understand the overall system. And while Senator Lowenthal's bill includes many of the recommendations that our report suggested, the original load-to-load testing was a primary reason for my opposition. With the amendments, the amendments get closer to something that's reasonable and can actually optimize the system in California. I would emphasize the fact that the devil is in the details with these sorts of restrictions that are being applied, that depending on how that amendment is actually finalized, it may still de facto eliminate out-of-state re-refiners from being able to sort of efficiently participate in the overall re-refining process of California's used oil. So I would emphasize the fact that those details are actually very important as to the specific language associated with that. In addition, the costs for out-of-state re-refiners should be commensurate with the cost for DTSC in order to maintain the testing and recording requirements. But overall, my opposition has to do with the fact that these load-to-load testings requirements has the potential to actually undo all of the incentives that the bill initially proposes. And so by keeping the system open to competition, it has the best chance of actually optimizing the amount of used oil that's recycled.
Senator Lowenthal, do you want to make a comment?
No, the question I have, so with the amendments, as you say, the devil is in the details as we work out with the committee, which takes away the punitive part and says a memorandum of understanding will be developed, and for the incentive to receive those incentives, if that works out, then you would remove your opposition?
I would remove my opposition.
Thank you.
Continue, please, witnesses.
Madam Chair and members, Rand Martin on behalf of Safety Clean. We would echo many of the remarks of Dr. Love. We agree that the amendments, again, the devil being in the details, we would remove our opposition. We would want to make sure that the equivalency to the in-state permit fee was limited to the testing and requirement, because the permit fee, or permit, it's not permit fee, but the permit is much, much broader than just the testing and requirement, testing and reporting requirements. We want to make sure that that limitation was there, that any fees were commensurate with the cost of doing the testing and reporting, but we're also fine with the MOU and the other provisions that have been discussed. Thank you.
My name is Christopher Harris. I'm the General Counsel of NORA, an association of responsible recyclers. NORA is the former acronym for the National Oil Recyclers Association. We're in strong opposition to this bill, even with the amendments. If someone came to you with a bill that said, okay, every crate of fruit and vegetables has to be tested for carcinogens and before it can be shipped out of state, and then there would be inspectors from California inspecting the plants out of state, making ketchup and so forth, you'd say, wait a minute, is that bill really necessary? Well, that's very similar to this bill. PCBs were banned in 1976. They are very rare. They're not non-existent, but they're very rare. And they do not exist in your crankcase, Assemblyman Chesbro, or in yours, Madam Chair. They're not from automotive used oil. They're from the electrical industry, which, by the way, has an exemption in this bill. There's an exemption from testing for the electrical industry. But you would not need to test ordinarily, because PCBs, in order to get into automotive oil, they would have to be deliberately mixed in with the automotive oil. But you're going to require expensive testing on every load of used oil that is generated in California. Now, there's mention of 722 certified California labs. That may be, but I don't think all of them are commercial labs. And when you consider the massive amount of testing that has to occur and the expense, we're not talking about a few hours. We're talking about days or many days or weeks before that test comes back. Think of the practicality of that. You're not going to be able to move that oil under the terms of the bill out of state unless it's tested and you get those results back. Another provision of this bill places all of the cost of all of the regulatory burden on the transporters, and these are folks who just pick up the oil and transport it to a transfer facility or a recycler. The entire regulatory burden, the cost of that, is imposed, including indirect costs. That provision is designed to wipe out the transporters. Now, NORA does not represent the transporters. We represent a few. It's not our primary constituency. But if you look at how onerous that provision is on the transporters, you will wipe out dozens and dozens of transporters as a result of that one provision. No other provision exists in California law or, to my knowledge, in national law, where all of the costs of regulation are imposed on a single set of entities. Assemblyman Chesbro, the portions of your bill that are in Senate Bill 546 are actually quite good and favorable, and they would be worthwhile. But it'd be better to pass your bill, Assembly Bill 907, because that really does provide some excellent incentives without creating the disparity between in-state recyclers and out-of-state recyclers. This bill has major constitutional problems in terms of the Commerce Clause. It'd be better to have a clean bill like Assembly Bill 907, and the two bills are not consistent. You can't pass both of these bills and make them work. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Other members in opposition?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is John Denholm. I represent Oil Changer and the Automotive Oil Change Association. We're very encouraged by the progress that's been made on this bill, but I will not be redundant. Most of my colleagues have already echoed some of the concerns that we still have, so we'll continue to work with the author of the bill, and at this time we'll remain in opposition. Thank you.
Madam Chair, honorable committee members, my name is James Devlin, Chief Executive Officer for Thermofluids. Currently, we're in opposition. I'll be efficient with my statement today, subject to a great understanding of the details, specifically around the cost. We're very open to California testing at our facilities outside the state of California, subject to an understanding that all our facilities would be covered in this exemption or this memorandum of understanding with toxic substances. And secondly, if the California oil can be consolidated. So we're still not subject to the costs associated with testing every single 6,000 gallon load. We would like to be put in a position where we can cost effectively and efficiently process and test 200,000 gallons after it's all been consolidated. And again, we would like to restate that the goals are very laudable. Currently, as it's designed, we think there's still some flaws associated with it, and we would ask that you hold it here until the amendments can be clarified, and there's a great deal of clarity around the memorandum of understanding, so we can really understand in great detail and support it wholeheartedly. And I appreciate your time today.
Madam Chair and members, Tony Francois for the Western States Petroleum Association. We want to thank the author and the sponsor for a very, we think, productive and free-flowing discussion we've had. But we do have an opposed unless amended letter into the committee. We've suggested some ways to the author and the sponsors that would address those, and we think we've had a fruitful discussion of those. And so we're optimistic at this time that we'll be able to close the gap on our differences with the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in opposition? Members' questions. Go ahead, Assemblymember Chesbro.
I have a couple of questions. DK and Evergreen have indicated that they've experienced some PCB contaminated loads over the past several years, but I've never been able to get the context of how much that represents relative to the total amount of throughput of oil. That's the only way you could identify how significant a problem it is. I know the argument's been made in the past that, you know, finding anywhere is bad, but I think that in order for that argument to have any weight, you have to understand compared to what or in what context.
We have identified over 100. I'm sorry.
Introduce yourself.
We've identified over 100 contaminated loads. The DTSC has acknowledged that.
During what time period?
In the last two to 3 years. It represents it's a little over 500,000 gallons, and we're talking ultimately about 120 million gallons of used oil. So that's your percentage.
The other thing to note is the expense. Once you discover a contaminated load, and especially if it has gotten mixed with anything else, then you are disposing of that entire load, whether it's 7,000 gallons or 10,000 gallons, through incineration because of TSCA rules that are applied to these loads by DTSC, and the expense is anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000. So when you have those kinds of expenses and you are almost always unable to collect it all from the people who did it to you, then that's an enormous expense and hit at your bottom line. And DTSC requires this of 75% of the oil right now collected in California that you do these tests. So this is not an insignificant amount of money involved, and it's not an insignificant cost. When you think of just the cost of a cleanup of a gas station, the cost of groundwater and soil might be a few $100,000, and here we're talking about 100 instances where you might have $100,000 or $200,000 apiece. So this is not an insignificant cost, and it's not an insignificant environmental issue as a result.
And what was, may I?
I think.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So what difference does it make where the oil's tested?
Whether it's tested?
Where?
Well, it depends on the quality of the lab, whether the lab has the equipment, and the verification and enforcement that DTSC can actually do. Once it leaves the state, it's much harder to enforce the testing than in-state. This MOU approach could resolve that problem.
I think the committee staff suggested amendment resolves the issue of where, Assemblymember Chesbro, because it suggests that the testing can be done out of state through this memorandum of understanding that has been suggested as the amendment. So I think that was cutting the Gordian knot.
Other questions by any other committee members? Yes, Assemblymember Knight.
I have one quick question. It's all about the fees, of course, for me. Exempts oil sold as a finished lubricant containing 70% re-refined base lubricant from the fee. Of that lubricant, what percentage is out there that's 70% re-refined?
Oh, there's actually quite a bit. That standard comes from the Public Contract Code. It's already in the law. And there's, I mean, all of the re-refined, most of the re-refined base lube that is in the market is 70% or more.
Then why would there be a fee?
Well, the fee here is really about the Integrated Waste Management Board upgrading its program. It hasn't been upgraded since it was created in the early 1990s. The increase in the fee is to allow them to upgrade their program to 21st century standards. That's why they want to do it.
Okay.
And I mean, that's really the long and short of it. They feel that they cannot, without increasing the incentive to do-it-yourself oil changers to 10 cents, the board feels that they will not be able to collect the remaining. We collect 72% of our oil in California. We're after the rest of it. And most of that is do-it-yourself oil changers. By increasing the incentive paid to them, the suggestion is that we'll get that oil and it won't go into the environment. Therefore, the increase in the fee. But it's important to note that the increase in the fee is really just the cost of living index. I mean, if you look at it, that's what it is. And they haven't increased that fee since 1991.
Assemblymember Hill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've been kind of focusing on the testing, but in the incentive program in 546, how many existing companies in California would qualify for incentives under the current bill?
That's a very good question, Mr. Hill. One company would at this time. That would be Evergreen Oil, which is the only re-refiner in the state of California. But the thing about incentives is they need to incentivize something. They need to they're meant to cause some change in behavior. And really the only justification that I would think for having an incentive for re-refining is to build capacity for re-refining.
Right.
And what this bill does is it delays the implementation date by a few years so that anybody, whether it be Evergreen or Safety Clean or Thermo Fluids, any of the companies, or Domenico Cardoon, can get the air permits that are necessary to create additional re-refining capacity. But that's the idea. The implementation date is January 1, 2014. Evergreen right now is expanding. They're at capacity, but we need more re-refining capacity. And if we're going to get that, rather than just shift to existing re-refiners and give them more money, then we need to have some way of incentivizing that. Right now, as you may know, although it's not your district, in the South Coast Air District, you can't get a permit because of the priority reserve problem. All of these are problems, and certainly in the Bay Area, AQMD, it's a problem. In the San Joaquin Valley, we have air problems in the state. So to get permits, it will take some time. But that's the idea, is to create an open market for anybody to create new re-refining capacity in California.
May I add to that, sir? The country as a whole generates 1.3 billion gallons of used oil annually. That's half the daily output of the Alaska pipeline. Only 10% of that is re-refined. California generates 160 million gallons of that. The intent of this bill is to incentivize more re-refining, both allowing our company to expand and other companies like DK and other companies that are out of state to come into California, so that oil does not get, it's a strategic non-renewable resource, and the bill's intent is for that oil to be re-refined and not burned, thereby conserving the oil.
Thank you.
Assemblymember Gilmore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was ready to take a position on this bill earlier, but it sounds like there's going to be some substantial changes to it, so I think I'm going to hold off on my vote till I see how the bill progresses.
Allow me to recap the amendments that have been worked out. And let me say, Senator Lowenthal, that I appreciate your staff and your willingness and the sponsors' willingness to work with our committee staff so that we could address some of the concerns that we had with the bill, and also that some of the opposition had. And I think the benefit of the amendments is first, the amendments do preserve the testing, but it lessens some of the burden on the haulers. so that unless the hauler chooses to go to a facility that is not not on Department of Toxics list. I'll call it list right now, but basically what this does is assure that those facilities that do have testing, even if they're out of state, then the oil from California could be brought there and could be re-refined. So we do preserve the intent of the environmental safety that you're trying to achieve, and yet we still try to make sure that that we're not putting an onerous burden on the haulers. The concerns of one of the opposition, the company
Thermalube.
Right. These amendments do not address those concerns. I'm not sure, perhaps there's ways the bill moves to address those, but at least the amendments do address the most of the opposition's concern, and we would have the amendments through by the Appropriations Committee before. So in other words, Assemblymember Gilmore, we would have them in place before it moves to Appropes. Yeah. So we will adopt them today, and then the bill will be in that form when it hits the Appropriations Committee. So do we have a motion for the bill as amended?
I move the bill as amended.
And a second? Great. So we have a motion by Assemblymember Brownlee, a second by Assemblymember Logue. Would you like to close?
Well, first, I'd like to thank the committee. We had a good concept. We were not sure how we could really protect California businesses while not making it onerous to the independent haulers, because that's really the basis of this. That, you know, DTSC, if anything in their permitting process, is elevating the testing requirements and will be elevating that. So here we have California, because of California's concerns, asking our own companies in California to do this, and how are we going to do this to the outer state without hurting them also? And I think that we've really, because of the help of this committee, the staff have moved in that direction, and I think we're right there. We have to make sure, as was pointed out, that the language does that, but we all want the language to do that, so that's not. And I also make a commitment to bring this bill back if it doesn't. And if you wish, if you wish to bring it back, I don't think so, because I think we're all on the same page. This is good for business. Business community in California supports it. It's good for the environment. And it protects our health because of PCBs. And regardless of what people say, that there aren't cases, there are issues, and it is a toxin, and we need, and whether out-of-state folks say, well, it's not important, we in California know how important it is, so I urge an aye vote.
I also want to acknowledge Assemblymember Logue's assistance in brought some creative thinking to the process, which helped us work out some of these amendments. So we will now do a roll call.
Skinner?
Aye.
Skinner, aye. Gilmore? Gilmore not voting. Brownlee? Aye. Brownlee, aye. Chesbro?
Aye.
Chesbro, aye. De Leon? Hill? Aye. Hill, aye. Huffman? Knight?
No.
Knight, no. Logue? Aye. Logue, aye. Bill's out.
Bill's out. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So we will now go to Senator Wolk, SB 459. So, great. So if we could please have conversations out in the hall so that the senator can open. Senator Wolk, if you're ready, you may open.
I am, Madam Chair, members. This is a bill that concerns abandoned vessels on state lands, many in the Delta, but frankly, it's not just a Delta problem, it's throughout the state. I'm very happy. Wait a minute.
We have a motion
have a
by
great
Assemblymember Knight and a
Just
second
look at
by
the pictures.
Assemblymember Hill.
Look, isn't this incredible? These are abandoned, just left. I am happy to accept the technical amendments that you suggested in 2 and 5 of the analysis, and I'm very happy to address a technical issue raised in comment 3, but I would ask the chair and the committee if we could have state lands work with your committee on the exact language.
Yes, we could do that.
Okay.
All right.
459 addresses the issue of abandoned watercraft on state waterways. Currently, state lands has the authority to remove and dispose of abandoned and trespassing vessels on state lands. However, the process is cumbersome and requires the Commission to file a lawsuit each time with the Attorney General's office. This bill streamlines that lengthy process by allowing the Commission to decide the final disposition of these vessels through an administrative process. It includes notice, public hearing requirements, an extra 30-day waiting period. This bill is sponsored by state lands and supported by the recreational boaters, no opposition. And I have Mario Di Bernardo, who is here from the State Lands Commission, to answer any questions. And I ask for your aye vote.
Great. Thank you, Senator Wolk. If one of you make a comment or two, and then I'll see if there's any questions by the committee members.
Mario Di Bernardo with the State Lands Commission, conveying our sponsorship and strong support of this bill. Urge your aye vote.
Great. Any questions by committee members? All right. Then we have a motion and a second. Great. And we will call the roll, assuming that your close is you.
Well, I'm asking for your aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Wolk. Go ahead.
Skinner.
Aye.
Skinner, aye. Gilmore. Brownlee. Brownlee, aye. Chesbro. De Leon. Hill. Hill, aye. Knight.
Aye.
Huffman, excuse me, I'm sorry, I skipped Mr. Huffman. He's not here. Mr. Knight.
Still aye.
Mr. Knight's an aye. And Mr. Logue? Mr. Logue's an aye. 1, 2, 3, 4. The bill's out.
Thank you,
So the bill with the technical amendments that you mentioned is out, and then the third technical amendment, we'll work with staff to.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Certainly. Thank you.
Members.
All right. So do we have? Right.
Mr. Flores.
Yeah, Senator Flores.
That's why the bill went.
So this is our last bill?
Yeah, that's our last
All right, so we have one remaining bill, Senator Flores, and we're just waiting for him to arrive.
Where's Mr. Flores? Oh, he's on his way. It's down that way. But you can go in. I know, I saw it.
Hello.
He does. So we get down to 0 meetings a year.
That's why I thought you might like to hear from me. Because no, you didn't know. Oh, that's not voting. Not voting. That's what's going to try to shape one of you guys' votes. No, I understand. So that's why I thought you might be able to do that. That's my profession.
Our last bill, Senator Flores, SB 382. You may open.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a very simple piece of legislation. It says when communities have in many cases, agricultural burning in order to reduce air pollution in the Central Valley, that it match the fireplace burning rules as well. Didn't make any sense for people traveling down the valley to see large bonfires of agricultural waste being burned, and yet they can't burn their fireplaces. Just kind of a misnomer. And so we've worked with our air district. We believe we have a bill that has the requisite amount of support. Would ask for an aye vote.
All right, we have a motion by Assemblymember Hill and a second by Assemblymember Brownlee, and we will hear from your witnesses in support.
Madam Chair, other members, Paul Yoder here today on behalf of the sponsor of the bill, San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District. Just would urge your aye vote. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Great. Any other witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition? Any questions by committee members? Go ahead, Assemblymember Gilmore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator, how are you today? Are we moving towards just an outright ban of agriculture burning in the San Joaquin Valley, in your estimation, and if is this bill basically a stopgap measure for that?
I don't know. What would be your position, Mr. Gilmore?
I have concern. I have a concern for the air quality, obviously, in the valley. Mm-hmm. But I'm asking you, as the author of the bill, is that where we're moving?
The legislation I authored prior to you coming to the legislature calls for a phasing out of agriculture. It was signed by the governor, and so I assume that at some point in time there will be a phase out of agricultural burning. It was signed by the governor, and that is the law. So we're making sure that we follow the law. Yeah.
Any other questions by committee members? Assemblymember Knight. You.
I don't.
Okay.
I'm
all
always
right.
up for one.
I wasn't sure. I thought you had. Okay. Senator Flores, would you like to close?
Just ask for an aye vote, Madam Chair.
Certainly. We have a motion on the floor. We will call the roll.
Skinner.
Aye.
Skinner, aye. Gilmore. Gilmore, no. Brownlee. Brownlee, aye. Chesbro. De Leon. Hill. Hill, aye. Huffman. Knight.
No.
Knight, no. Logue. Logue, no.
Bill's on call.
The bill is on call. Thank you. So if we could find our missing members, and if my other committee members would please bear with us while we, so we can lift the call. Can we lose quorum if we're just lifting the call?
Well, the members that are missing are the ones that need to vote.
Right, but do we need a quorum for that? Yeah, we do. I know, but I need a quorum to, for the other members to be able to. Thank you, Assemblymember Brownlee.
We have 3 bills on call.
We have 3 bills on call. SB 104, Senator Oropeza, SB 262, Senator Lowenthal, and SB 382, Senator Flores.
What's that?
What?
So I don't need to hold quorum? Or?
There's already quorum's already been
Yeah, the
established.
quorum's been
Oh, so I
established.
can let people leave?
If they have voted on all the measures.
Yeah,
they
okay,
don't
all right.
require-
Okay.
There you go.
All right. That's what I
Yeah,
thought.
mainly Huffman and De Leon are the ones that
I
are
know,
missing.
but I can let these guys leave. That's what I was really asking you. Yeah. Okay. All right, so my other members, you can depart, and we will leave this open for about 5 more minutes for our other,
Just checking to see if any of your members
yeah.
have missed anything. But I don't think so.
That's true. Got that part, yeah.
So remember, these are all from McMurray. Yep.
Listen,
So it's avocado and beach and
Lisa and I love, she goes,
But it's funny, her age is 59, and she's 45. And this going you're
trying to hit me with the chair. Don't listen to him.
Hey, I'm gonna.
Well, he knows it's
He's done a good job.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I've never
Silver
seen
Skin and I worked for the
It's my Oh, you were flying, huh? I was just thinking of my head.
I need a voice right now.
That was my thought. That's okay conceptually.
I'm just going to be a lady.
All right. That's like one huge chamber, correct? Yeah.
Yes, yes. Okay.
Senate Natural Resources. Right, and we have, who else?
You want me to support it?
Jasper, right, thank you. Thank you.
You left all that and so we can stay off.
Whenever.
Wait, still?
We don't need to. Hold on.
On 262?
We're going to lift the call. Lift the call 262.
We will now lift the call on SB 262.
Okay, absent members. 262.
Yes.
De Leon.
Aye.
De Leon, aye. Huffman. Oh, he's here. Mr. Logue.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Logue is an aye. Mr. Gilmore, you were not voting?
Yes. Aye.
Mr. Gilmore is an aye. Okay, and 104 is another one that, did you want to add on to that? You want to lift-
All right, we will now lift the call on SB 104, Senator Oropesa.
Absent members is De Leon.
Aye.
Aye, and Mr. Huffman. Bill's out.
The bill is now out. The other bill.